Hey guys, here's Andre. Now, I know I'm kind of late for a review of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, but as I recently watched that movie for I think the fourth time, I really felt the need to put my own impressions about this movie out there. And now that the dust sort of settled and most people who are interested in this movie already saw it in theaters, I think it is pretty safe to do a review that doesn't intend to give some kind of recommendation whether you should watch the movie or not, but it intends to join the already ongoing conversation between people who already watched this movie and formed at least some kind of solid opinion about it. So, for those of you who still haven't watched the movie, maybe you will stop now listening and come back later after you watched it, because the following will contain major spoilers, so be warned. Okay, let's get to it then. So, as we all know, Rogue One is addressing two major questions that have been unanswered since the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope. The first one is, how did the rebellion actually get the plans for the Death Star? And the second one, how on earth was the Empire that stupid to construct the Death Star in a way that only a single well placed shot could trigger a chain reaction that at the end leads to this massive thing blowing up? I mean, how is this possible? The thing with this movie is that unless you never watch the other Star Wars movies, especially the episodes 4 to 7, you have at least some kind of expectation. You expect to see something that is able to affect you in a way that reminds you of how the episodes 4 to 7 were able to affect you. You expect some kind of epicness while at the same time you are perfectly aware of the fact that this movie is indeed supposed to be more of a standalone movie which can function for itself and that has a more gritty and more realistic approach to it than what is known as the main Star Wars storyline, which unfolds during the course of several movies. And I was perfectly aware of all that and tried to go into the cinema as unbiased as it can get if you do really like the Star Wars universe. I also knew that most of the reviews were overwhelmingly positive and even claimed that this movie is better than Star Wars Force Awakens, a movie which I really liked. And Rogue One, a Star Wars story, starts indeed very nice. You immediately get the Star Wars feeling while watching Krennic's ship flying low over the beach. Then he's landing on some field while the weather is atrocious, it's rainy, it's windy, and it all seems very dark and gritty. So it's very well made. Mads Mikkelsen as Galen Erso does an outstanding job in that opening sequence, and my initial impressions right from the start were very good, and I was hooked in minutes. Mm, at least I thought I was. Um, Only a few minutes later, the movie jumps from location to location in kind of a heartbeat. You never get the chance to get accustomed with the optics and the atmosphere of these locations. The movie tries to, I think, have some sort of world building, but it just doesn't achieve that for me. It feels rushed, like when you are on vacation and would like to take your time to explore your surroundings, but your host is dragging you from place to place and you can't even catch your breath. And at the end of the day, you feel like you saw so much, but at the same time, nothing at all. When, for example, Cassian was first introduced, his character to me felt immediately flat compared to the intensity of the opening scene in the field. I actually could see him act, which is never a good thing, and for the remainder of the movie, I did not buy into his character at all. He felt more like a wannabe badass, skinny version of Han Solo. Also, his moral struggles felt over dramatized compared to the easiness of Han Solo maneuvering through his own problems back in those other movies. So I think it's no coincidence that Cassian even had a similar clothing style. Of all the characters, Galen and Krennic were to me the most compelling. I got the feeling that they actually had some kind of purpose, that their actions actually mattered because their characters were fleshed out more than the rest of the cast. And I say this even though Galen Erso didn't have that much screen time, but during the time he was on screen and during the conversations where he was mentioned. The movie achieved to shape this character very well, and I actually started to care about him. I was, for example, sad when he died. It might have been the only time I felt something during the movie beside the Darth Vader scenes or when K2SO was talking and doing his awesome one-liners. And speaking of Vader, I would have loved to see him in more scenes, but to be honest, this maybe comes just from the fact that the other characters were not compelling enough. I mean, in Force Awakens, Luke Skywalker has only one scene at the very end of the movie. Of course, I was hoping to see him at the end, like more times, but I really didn't care that he only had that one last scene because all the other characters actually carried the movie, whereas in Rogue One, to me, only Galen Erso and director Krennic and K2SO carry the movie. It's their performance and the writing of their characters that stands out. Jin, for example, just so happens to be Galen's daughter, but you never get to know what happened to her in the past. What happened between the opening scenes and her being rescued by the rebellion? We just know that Saw Gerrera trained her, but it would have been nice to see the training, to see some of the stuff she did when she was younger, to see the relationship between her and Saw Gerrera. And speaking of him, Forrest Whitaker was, to me, wasted in this movie, and his character, while he had screen time, was very strange and awkward. I wonder what this way to talk and look should achieve. Was he on some kind of medication or drugs because of all those mechanical parts attached to his body? I really don't know. And why does he refuse to run with the others when Jeddah City is wiped out by the Death Star? This last scene with him wants to be somehow heroic and dramatic, I guess, but as I watched it, I thought that the movie did nothing before that scene to make me care about his death or his kind of sacrifice. Then there was the Imperial pilot, who I thought was a pretty okay character. The actor, Riz Ahmed, actually carried this character with his acting skills. It was not the writing of the character which stood out, but he himself did the most out of it. Then there were the two Guardians from Jeddah City, portrayed by Donnie Yen and Wen Yang. I hope I spelled it right. Their relationship seems to be very old, but you never get to know how they met, what they did together, what created their special bond, and so on. Donnie Yen was praised in reviews for the character he portrayed. To be honest, I found him a little bit annoying, especially in those scenes where he constantly repeated that thing about the Force. It was almost cringeworthy instead of that epic feeling it was supposed to evoke. Every time he said it, I was like, please don't say it again. Please don't do it. It's annoying. And about the last chapter on Scarif, except for the visuals, which were absolutely fantastic. By the way, they were fantastic throughout the whole movie. And the heroics of K2SO, I really did not care about the main characters dying at the end. Just because the majority of them remained strangers to me. I mean, even that CG Admiral was more entertaining to watch and root for. So to sum it all up, it is known that the movie underwent heavy reshooting, and you can feel that in the end result. The movie does not seem as coherent as it could have been. There are even some editing fails in it, where you have shots with absolutely no purpose at all, where you see only one arm or, whatever. It felt really rushed. The writing for the characters was weak for the majority of the time, and I did not buy into any of them except Galen Krennic, K2SO, and of course Vader. But he is always great, so it's just no surprise. And as for CG Tarkin, many people were annoyed because you clearly could tell that he is CG, but for what they aimed to do with him, I thought he was still well made. But if he would have remained always that mirror reflection, it would have been maybe better. But the way they handled him was at least not as offending to me as it seems it was for other viewers. Okay, people, so here you have it. Those are my impressions about Rogue One. I am well aware that the majority of reviews is way more positive than mine, but that's what it is. So if you like the video, then just give it a thumbs up, well, and maybe subscribe.